In this video series, I will provide perspective, historical fact, and critical analyses of the current political landscape that gave cause for the resurgence of the American government. As we are taking the needed steps to restore our lawful government here in America, I will present to you how it is being done. The Federation of States has secured and offers to you your rightful claim to your inheritance as an American. And we ask that you join your fellow American state nationals in the work of finishing the reconstruction of our constitutionally guaranteed Republican form of government. Welcome back, America and the world, for today's episode of the Resurgence Pulse Report. I'm your host, Louise Campbell Anthony, here with the Peacekeeping Task Force for the Federation of States, that is, United States of America Unincorporated. Let me introduce to you the perspective for today's episode. Watch this short video clip from the 1986 movie called The Golden Child.
Mr. Gerald. You may speak with her. She can hear you.
Tell me about the golden child.
Every 1,000 generations, a perfect child is born. A golden child. He has come to rescue us.
Rescue us from what?
From ourselves.
Ah.
He is the bringer of compassion. If he dies, compassion will die with him.
So if something happens to the kid, the whole world goes to hell?
The world will become hell.
Ah. Not far from that now. Listen, who would want to take the kid anyway?
Those who want evil rather than good.
Can you be a little bit more specific?
We do not know who took him.
Well, could you tell me why the people that took him are trying to make him eat blood?
Nothing in this world will hurt him. But if he were to pollute himself with anything impure, he would become vulnerable.
Okay. So if he eats the blood, they can kill him?
Yes.
Oh.
Do you have any other questions?
There was a special child born on October 8th, 1941, a golden child, if you will, although he would never describe himself in that way. The destiny that was his was over a century in the making. He didn't know what his destiny was when he was a child. He didn't even really know what his real heritage was until it was revealed to him very late in his life, in his 60s, by his mother on her deathbed. It was not even told to him initially, but to his beloved wife. He learned that he had inherited the mantle as the hereditary head of state of America and would be the one to bring an end to this evil that plagued America and even the world. This evil of living people being denigrated and replaced by corporations, having their lives sucked out of them until their deaths as corporate feudal slaves. No one else would have the power to do this but him. This child fulfilled his destiny before his passing. This episode will share some of the pivotal events that unfolded to achieve this end in dedication to the memory of our beloved late hereditary head of state, James Clinton Belcher. Our government is supposed to operate according to a chain of delegation of power. All the powers flow from the Republican states to their business organizations, the United States, then the United States of America, then to the States of America, and on to the Federal Republic. And last in that chain are our foreign federal government service providers, the British territorial provider and our municipal Holy Roman Empire provider. Notice that the Republican states are the only true sovereign entities. The Union doing business as the United States, the Federation doing business as the United States of America, and the Confederation doing business as the states of America, all perform work for and are empowered by the Republican states. The states agreed to have the states of states and their confederation manage the day-to-day business affairs of the Federal Republic, which was made responsible for exercising the 19 enumerated delegated powers on behalf of the states. Everything worked fine from 1787 until 1860. It was then that the Southern states of states, the members of the original Confederation, walked out and left the Confederation without the quorum necessary to conduct that business. As a result, the Confederation could no longer operate, and neither could the Federal Republic, which was overseen and funded by the Confederation. The Constitution for the United States of America of 1787 went dormant, along with the Confederation and the Federal Republic, both awaiting a reconstruction that never happened. Meantime, what happened to the United States and its Federation of States doing business as the United States of America? Neither one was ever involved in the so-called American Civil War, which was fought entirely by the ex-members of the original and broken Confederation and the foreign British and Papal federal subcontractors. Well, this is how the history unfolds. During the so-called American Civil War, the Brits invaded our capital, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, murdered our people, and caused other Americans to flee for their lives all the way to California. This is how and when we lost America to the first evil British invasion. The delegates representing our state assemblies and working for our Federation of States, doing business as the United States of America, were targeted in the wake of this so-called Civil War. They were beaten, murdered, burned out, blackballed, falsely accused of crimes, and many were forced to flee to the far reaches of the Northwest Territories, or entirely offshore, by roving gangs of former Union soldiers. In one massacre alone, 68 American leaders and staff members of the Federation of States were murdered, and the murder was covered up as a train wreck in a similar way as the Titanic cover-up story. During the Theodore Roosevelt administration, the Scottish interloper doing business as the United States of America Incorporated, founded in 1868. It was preparing to go bankrupt. James's great-uncle, Clinton Belcher, rode to Washington, D.C. to take possession of the Great Seals, the Great Seal of the United States of America and the Great Seal of the United States. On his way home, as he crossed over into Maryland, he was viciously attacked by men awaiting to ambush him. In the resulting fight, he killed 6 of his attackers. His own horse was also killed. He grabbed one of the dead man's horses and rode off into the night, making for the western frontier to save his life. They stole the Great Seals, and they lied about the whole circumstance and branded Clinton Belcher as a horse thief, neatly omitting their own grand theft under deadly force, their intent to murder, their killing of his horse, and all the rest of it. He spent the rest of his life on the lam, always looking over his shoulder and always moving from place to place to place. Theodore Roosevelt considered him a danger to our government, self-evidently meaning the foreign territorial usurpers on our shores. Clinton died without issue, so the torch passed to his younger brother, James, and from James to his son, Orville, and from Orville to his son, James Clinton Belcher. At the time James was born in 1941, federal agents were still hunting and harassing members of the family. Orville Belcher moved his young son 12 times in the first 10 years of his life, constantly moving just as great-uncle Clintwood had to move and keep moving to avoid being arrested on false charges or be murdered outright. This is a shameful and painful story to tell, in which good men were replaced by bad men, honorable men replaced by crooks, and innocent people who were the victims of crime were portrayed as criminals, while the actual criminals sat at ease on the White House lawn. The Belchers have lived poor and they have lived rough, But through it all, they remembered who they are. They remembered their hereditary offices. They remembered their lineage. They never ceased the search to recover the Great Seals. Fully a third of the American government was destroyed in the aftermath of this so-called Civil War and has awaited reconstruction for 150 plus years because nobody put the pieces of information together and told the American people, one, what happened, and two, what needs to be done. Instead, even the information about the Federal Republic was dropped from the school books. Part of the problem has been identifying who we the people are. The states of the Union were not in session at the end of the so-called Civil War. After 5 years of utter havoc, many of those circuit riders responsible for summoning the states into session were dead, disabled, or dislocated. Everyone was confused. And to add to the confusion, certain members of the victorious Union Army set out to destroy what remained of the Federation of States. With both the American Federation and the Confederation gone, there would be no American government operating in international jurisdiction. The Brits and the Pope and the Lord Mayor could waltz right on in here quietly and do whatever they pleased with the vast resources and manpower of this country. So, the blatant truth is, they stole the Great Seals and they attacked, murdered, and caused the survivors of the Federation and the Federal Republic both to flee westward into the Indian territories. And then they simply lied about the whole circumstance to the rest of the world. According to the perpetrators, the American government just vanished into thin air. It was presumed to be in abeyance, presumed to be in interregnum. Let's go back to the end of the American Revolutionary War to a young colonel in the Continental Army named William Belcher, an heir of William the Conqueror. In order to operate in international and global business realms, the Federation had to operate under a recognized sovereign, which is a problem because we were getting rid of sovereigns and because each individual state could not be recognized as a sovereign in international jurisdiction and still have the advantage of mutually shared powers. To get past this obstacle, the founders used the sovereign status of William Belcher, a patriot from Connecticut, who later served as a colonel in the Continental Army. The Belchers acted as heads of states because someone who was already a sovereign in 1783 had to act in that capacity in order to conduct international trade and commerce. That's just the way things were set up back then. The former colonists didn't want to choose one of the European monarchs, so they chose William Belcher, an American in fact, and used his coat of arms as their emblem and seal. Both the Great Seal of the United States of America and the dependent Great Seal of the United States are part of the Belcher clan array. In the world of international government and politics, there's absolutely no doubt whose recognized sovereignty was used to represent the sovereignty of this country. In the realm of monarchs and other grand poobahs, only those with standing are allowed to play on their chessboard. In the 1700s, America needed to be represented by someone with the credentials the rest of the world would accept. And so, William Belcher became that person, and his coat of arms was extended to cover the American fleets. The source of his recognized sovereignty was the Norman Conquest. What this means for all of us is that after the Revolutionary War was won, William Belcher extended individual sovereignty to every man who served in the Continental Army and to every mother's son and daughter born on the soil of this country forever afterward. He didn't stay with being king. He made us all kings and queens in our own right, just as his own ancestor, William the Conqueror, extended sovereignty to him. So when Americans say that we are sovereigns, that's literal. And that is something that has stuck in the craw of the European nobility for over 200 years, even if most people are ignorant to know the basis of their claim to be a sovereign people. The Great Seals and flags attached to his clan's coat of arms have been donated via trust to this country and are held in trust by the donors and the beneficiaries. as the chief donor, James Clinton Belcher becomes head of state in international jurisdiction and postmaster of the land of this country. He's the one who has standing to enforce the Declaration of Independence against Britain and all treaties with the British monarch, Holy See, and Lord Mayor of London as an equal principle. On October 21st of 2017, to end 150 years of illegal commercial mercenary occupation of the British territorial U.S. military perpetrated since the so-called Civil War, our head of state declared peace on air, on land, and on sea by the issuance of a declaration of flag. With this declaration of flag, our head of state officially raised our peacetime flag. This silenced all claims of interregnum and abandonment, announcing to the world that the civil government of the United States of America has been restored. Our Title IV military flags that are now waving on top of non-military installations need to be lowered and our peace flag raised on every government building, every courthouse, on every patriot's home, on every flagpole, on every public building, wherever our military flag now flies. It needs to be lowered and our peacetime flag raised. There is one legitimate government left standing in the international jurisdiction of air, land, and sea. One and only one that actually does represent the people of this country. The name of that government organization is with the capital T, United States of America, formed on September 9th, 1776. The United States of America operates and sails its vessels in international jurisdiction under the auspices of the Norman kings of England and France, and in particular, under the great seals of William Belcher, one of the Bells kings of Gaul, as well as being a sovereign in its own right in England, by lawful heritage established and settled in 1087 AD. Let's take a look at those flags and seals. Here we have an image of William Belcher's, Belcher being the British transliteration of Belcher, his coat of arms, centered at the top. It has vertical red and gold pales with a broad horizontal blue and white chief. To the left, you can see the resemblance adopted in the Great Seal of the United States of America unincorporated. If you notice, the Great Seal without circles indicates sovereign power. That refers to the actual American government. And the Great Seal on the right, enclosed with a solid circle, indicates operating under delegated power. That refers to our federal United States government services providers that we hired. It was ultimately decided that the federal United States had to conform to the source of its delegated power, the United States of America. So both Great Seals are identical, except that the one is enclosed by a circle and the other is not, having the olive branch in the left claw for peace and the arrows in the right claw for war. Thus, we have a peacetime flag and a wartime flag, as you can see here at the bottom. The flags here below carry the same semblance of colors, with the peacetime flag, which we call open gate, displaying the original vertical position, and our Title IV wartime flag here on the right inverts to the horizontal positioning. Old Glory. Both the seals and flags belong to us, the American government. We have granted the United States government permission to use them when and only when They are exercising our delegated powers as enumerated in their constitutional contracts. Unfortunately for us, they can't read very well. They've got their thinking upside down and backwards and have breached their contract in our trust. So there can be no question. James Clinton Belcher is a descendant of the original sovereign, William Belcher, who fought in the Revolutionary War and conferred upon America the sovereign capacity to operate in the international jurisdiction alongside the other sovereign nations like Spain, England, Rome, etc. He is indeed the hereditary head of state and keeper of the Great Seals. The Belchers have been sovereigns in their own right in France since 480 AD, and in England since 1087 AD, and in America since 1777 AD. That is what is meant by continuity of the evidence. A claim by right established by inheritance or conquest or election maintained over time in continuity. In this case, continuity in office as sovereigns in their own right. A claim of a sovereign person made in behalf of a sovereign people having continuity of office predating all of the nonsense of this so-called American Civil War, and a sovereignty even predating the establishment of the Pope's Unum Sanctum Trust by 800 years. It trumps all claims that can be made by any organization claiming to have priority claims on America or own our government. To put it bluntly, when push came to shove and every other system meant to protect us all was either failing to respond or was actively seeking to enslave and harm us, the hereditary head of state took action to bust out the fraud and reclaim all the assets of the sovereign nation states for the nation states, and also established equal protection claims for each and every one of us. The Belchers of this generation stand behind teaching the people to self-govern and to honor the true King of Heaven, our Creator, who lives in the hearts of all mankind forever. Any other presumption must be disallowed. America, did you know that in order for a country to be established, you must have a postal service? And you have to have a seat of government and a capital where the mail for that government can come. Our national capital address is General Delivery, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. That is what it's always been. Our seat of government and general post office for the United States of America, unincorporated, comes by treaty with the Belchers in Spain in 1702 and has been established in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania since 1732. To this day, the United States of America, unincorporated, is not a member of the Universal Postal Union and maintains its own separate service and private postal designations. James Clinton Belcher is the American Postmaster on the land and the American Postmaster on the sea by international treaty and inheritance, predating the War of Independence. This is the foundational postal treaty that connects our country to postal service on an international and private basis. By contrast, the United States Post Office was established by Benjamin Franklin in 1778 and also located in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, but to serve the United States bureaucracy and the citizenry of the United States, including the Native American tribes subscribing to Roman civil law and municipal citizenship. The USPS is a member of the Universal Postal Union and operates in global commerce. And both of these postal treaties are vital to the proper functioning of our country as a member of the community of nations. So both must be honored and regulated according to our published treaties and constitutional agreements. A lot of people don't realize that we've always had two capitals, thus two seats of government in this country. We have our national capital at Philadelphia for our American government, and we have the federal capital at Washington, D.C. for our federal government, which is where the government service providers exercising delegated powers were supposed to be operating from since the beginning. So it makes perfect sense once you know that and can see that. They tried to make us go dormant and did almost succeed in closing our post office, which would have been fatal for our country. But we were able to keep a hand on that with the help of 900 Americans. With the base of only 900 people, we kept our national post office open. We thank God for James McBride and Pope Benedict XVI and various postmasters around the world who gathered together and said, yeah, that's their national capital. And there's still 900 of them there. So that's how we managed to save our national post office and seat of government. The Belcher family has had to have a presence in the Philadelphia area for the post office, and they have for nearly 300 years. Because the average American has not been taught these fundamental facts about government, we have so many committed, hardworking patriots following after red herrings. They don't know that we don't have constitutional rights. We have constitutional guarantees. They don't know that our government is not under any constitution. That's the United States government under a constitution with us. Our government is under the Declaration of Independence. Now that I've covered the hidden history about our country actually being headed by a head of state and not a president. Oh, did you connect those dots yet in your mind when I was explaining that? Yes, the leaders of countries are heads of state. Leaders of corporations are presidents and CEOs. Let me just let that sit there and sink in your mind for a moment, and I'll move on. Now I'm going to challenge the miseducation we all have been taught about the name of our country. Where did it come from? Let's watch this short video for us all to review what our learned history professors have taught us on this topic.
While Christopher Columbus discovered America, he didn't lend it his name. That honor falls to the Italian navigator Amerigo Vespucci.
Amerigo Vespucci was one of the first to realize that North and South America were nowhere near Asia, were separate continents.
Columbus, on the other hand, never ceased to believe that his discoveries were part of Asia.
Born in Florence, Italy in 1451, Amerigo Vespucci held a series of jobs: merchant, steward, banker, and ultimately operated a ship outfitting business in Sevilla, Spain, before becoming an explorer in his 40s.
He apparently met Columbus and through conversation with him sparked his interest in going to the Indies, which is what the Spaniards called the Americas.
In 1497, Vespucci sailed with a fleet of Spanish ships in search of a western passage to the Indies and landed in Central America. He is believed to have sailed as far north as the Gulf of St. Lawrence before returning to Spain.
On May 16, 1499, Vespucci sailed from Cadiz to the New World and explored along the coast of Brazil, and in the course of that voyage discovered the Amazon River.
Vespucci's third voyage embarked in 1501, this time in the service of Portuguese King Manuel I. Passing through the Cape Verde Islands, Vespucci explored the coasts of Brazil and Argentina, where he discovered present-day Rio de Janeiro and studied the Native Americans.
When Amerigo Vespucci returned from his third voyage, he asserted that the lands that he had explored were not, as Columbus had insisted, part of Asia, but were instead part of the New World.
Vespucci called it a new fourth part of the world, alongside Africa, Asia, and Europe.
Records are mixed as to whether Vespucci sailed on 1 or 3 additional expeditions to the New World. What is known is that he returned to live in Spain, and in 1508 was awarded the prestigious office of Pilot Major. On February 22, 1512, Amerigo Vespucci died of malaria in Sevilla, Spain.
The New World received the name America, a feminized version of Amerigo Vespucci, because Vespucci was a good propagandist. Amerigo's writings about the New World were much more known than anything Columbus had written.
The German cartographer Martin Waldseemüller produced a world map in 1517. On this world map, he claimed that Amerigo Vespucci had actually been the first person to make landfall on what we now know as America or South America. It's been named America ever since.
So Amerigo Vespucci, an Italian mapmaker, conferred his name upon our country. Our learned professors peddle this as history, but we beg to differ. Let me recount for you some real history. The genesis of America as a modern nation lies in the far distant past when the hardy seafaring people of the Normandy coast, known as Armoricans, a tribal nation with the Kingdom of Gaul, began trading with the natives of what is now known as Nova Scotia and with the northeastern United States for furs. The Armoricans are extremely intrepid navigators, sailors, and traders, and from their home bases in Normandy and Brittany, they ventured westward, ever westward. This trade was established and recorded in Roman times and continued unabated for at least 600 years. Most recently evidenced by the French and Indian fur trade we still read about in our history books. It is from the Armoricans that America inherits its name. And so far as European colonization and government goes, it is with the government of Gaul that it all begins. Gaul is the ancient Roman name for France, and it was under the Kingdom of Gaul that the original Armorican trade in furs began. The Belchers are the equally ancient and dominant tribal nation of Gaul, and the chieftain kings of Normandy, including the land and blood of the Armoricans. Let me show you an ancient map of Armorica from 55 BC. This is an ancient Roman map of Armorica, a region of Gaul back in 55 BC. So in fact, the first real European claims concerning this country result from the Armorican fur trade. It was the Armoricans from coastal Normandy who are the ones who, quote unquote, discovered and populated North America, hence the name America. It is just an English transliteration of the French tribal name Armorica. This claim dates back millennia before Christopher Columbus and Amerigo Vespucci. As the tribal chieftains of Gaul, the Belchers and their nations own all of France, and their peoples also populate and own the kingdoms of Aragon and Castile in Spain and the Kingdom of Powys in central England. Fast forward to modern times. From Powys, these European tribal chieftains migrated to America in 1608. They have remained in this country and populated it ever since. Those who came to this country were independent sovereigns in their own right as a result of the settlement of the Norman conquest in 1087 AD, and kinsmen of William of Normandy, of the same family and lineage. James Clinton Belcher is the chieftain of the Belchers in America. His ancestral name in France is Guillerot de Armentrout du Lac, and the honorable history of his house of Bellegarde in northern France is well known. Thus, by both name and shield, and by history of service of his ancestor William Belcher of Connecticut in the Continental Army and afterward, the history of America on land and sea is inextricably connected to France as well as Spain and England. And by dust and by blood, they make one compact via the hand of the clan chieftain of the Belchers, who has summoned the actual states of the Union into session. All of the jurisdictions of the law, national, international, and global, all the local forms of law engaged in by our country and our countrymen come together in one compact. Article 6, Section 2 of all three federal constitutions fully admits that treaty is the highest form of law among nations, and that all treaties are honored, including those concluded prior to the settlement of the War of Independence. The new American government assumed all treaty debts, obligations, and contracts. This allows us to be sure that this country functions in all respects in a single unbroken compact, and our knowledge and our presence here guarantees that that compact has never been vacated at any time. Ownership interest in this country is not limited to those principles present in 1776, but includes a far more venerable heritage. The Mayflower Compact, signed November 11th of 1620, forms the first public declaration of law brought forward by the English settlers coming to these shores. But even prior to that, the British lineage Belchers had established their own testament and declaration of law in 1608 when they arrived in Boston, Massachusetts, and began building the Old South Church. Both of these foundations are international treaties established by sovereign principles, inherited under Article 6, Section 2. Both predate the earliest known treaties with North American Indian tribes. They predate the Treaty of Fort Pitt, also known as the Treaty with the Delawares, by over 150 years. This word indigenous, the Federation recognizes, has been used as a tool to promote divisiveness and cultural elitism. So allow me to bring your attention to one specific blood treaty, a blood treaty between the Iroquois nations and the Armorican people of Normandy in France. To this day, it is hard to find any member of any Iroquois League tribal nation who doesn't test positive for French ancestry. The Armoricans, who still live in the southwestern part of the Normandy Peninsula, are the ones who gave their name to the new continents of Americas. Their blood treaties and trading relationships are memorialized in stories and legends, in petroglyphs, some going back to Egypt, and DNA. Scandinavians allied with the Armoricans, both are seafaring nations, arrived in North America and began colonizing. When? Around 10,000 BC, and became known as the Mound people. White-skinned, blue-eyed, and red or blonde-haired. These immigrants built large colonies of thousands of people. Their blood treaties account for the blue-eyed, blonde-haired individuals who appeared among the black-haired, dark-eyed tribal populations who greeted the first, quote-unquote, European explorers. To this day, full-blood American Indians from tribes all along the eastern seaboard and far inland have traces of Scandinavian and German DNA, which people assume is of relatively recent origin, maybe back to the Viking days, but no, the records are clear. DNA occurs in sequence. It is entirely possible to count approximately how many generations have passed since new DNA was added. When we do that kind of analysis, we find that white people have been in this country as long as red, black, or yellow men, and longer than some. So before we begin identifying some people as indigenous, quote unquote, based on skin color, eye shape, and language affiliations, and others as non-indigenous, it behooves us all to look at the DNA evidence, which shows that there is only one family of mankind and one common mother from which we all inherit our mitochondria, and no reason to assume that any one race or religion or people are indigenous to any one region. In fact, the DNA evidence proves that ultimately we all came from Africa. So a strong and rational argument can be made that anyone living outside of Africa is non-indigenous to whatever land you are on. And it has nothing to do with your skin color or where your great-great-great-grandparents were born. We are bringing this forward to stop people from being played like a fool and giving them ammunition to start another round of the same old game of divide and conquer and setting up the same old system of landlords, overseers, and slaves. They do this by arbitrarily choosing new shills to act as landlords. Then they establish a new elite to work as overseers for the landlords and leaving everyone else as slaves. Is this what we want to perpetuate? Or are we ready to progress to a better world and be a better people? Imagine being 60 years old and standing by your dying mother's bedside, and she says to you, "Son, you are the one." You respond to her, "The one for what, Mom?" And she says, "Son, You will have to be the one to bring America out of chattel slavery and ignorance back onto the land of the free and the home of the brave. And you respond to her, Mom, what do you mean by back onto the land? Well, son, I know that what I'm about to tell you will be hard for you to take in, and you will have a lot of questions. But let me explain why we had to keep moving you from place to place and keep you alive and safe in anticipation that this day would come. You see, son, you are the hereditary head of state of our great country. You are the only one left with the provenance to bring the original states of the Union back into session after almost 150 years of being an interregnum. America stands at the door of being left in its chains of slavery permanently and irreversibly if you don't step into your office now. And son, there's more. The wife we chose for you, Anna Maria Wilhelmina Hannah Sophia Reisinger von Reichenstein von Lotto-Vorbeck, she is the heir to the Saint Germain Family World Trust, one of the wealthiest donor family estates in the world that was willed to our states of the Union to fund all of government and relieve all the people of poverty and ignorance forever. Her heritage also comes from our ancient race of the Coriosolites of Armorica, our homeland. We knew that you would need her provenance to be able to accomplish this grave feat of breaking the financial chains of slavery that has kept America bound for over a century. Sit down, son. It's time that you knew your hidden family history. That sounds like a good storyline for a great movie, doesn't it? Well, it's not just a storyline. It's based in fact. Although some of my details are not accurate, the indication that some divine providence was involved is. This woman, Anna Maria, is the heir of the Saint Germain Family World Trust that was donated to run governments of the world. She did marry this man, James Clinton Belcher, who was born the son of William de Gilroy, right wise king, king of Powys, king of England, king of Normandy, king of Gaul. He is the hereditary head of state for the United States of America. This match was made by destiny. How did he become the one? Our founding fathers deliberately placed the authority to summon the states of the Union into session into the hands of three separate entities as a fail-safe plan. Those three entities occupied each of the three jurisdictions where the international governing powers of any and all nations exist: the land, the sea, and the air jurisdictions. The first summoning authority is the states of the Union themselves, who occupy the land jurisdiction. A quorum of 9 member states can call the states back into session. However, after 150 years, Texas was the only organic state standing, so this option was not possible. The second summoning authority is the, with the capital T, President of the United States of America, which occupies the sea jurisdiction. America has not had an actual American president since Charles Wilson in 1872, due to the so-called American Civil War takeover perpetrated by Abraham Lincoln and the Union Army mercenaries, which placed America under a perpetual military occupation. So again, this option was not possible. The last summoning authority left standing and viable was the office of the hereditary head of state, who occupies the air jurisdiction. Our head of state, James Clinton Belcher, was the one who restored our American civil government in 1998, bringing it back from the brink of imminent collapse and foreign takeover. No one else, not Trump, not Russell J. Gould, not any organized group of so-called state assemblies or state republics, have that provenance, standing, or authority to do this. A very critical fact that America needs to know. Our beloved Jim did not live to see the homecoming day of our American government. November 17th, 2025. Our fiduciary announced that for the first time in 160 years, America is back in the hands of Americans who are operating as Americans. The International Court of Justice has ruled in our favor. Our country is now seated. Our country is now recognized. The Americans are back home to the land of the free and the home of the brave. All of the terrible things we've had to address and struggle with for so long are going away. The great work that Jim and the Federation of States have been able to accomplish on behalf of America and on behalf of the world has finally come to fruition. It could not have been done without a massive amount of help and support. His advocacy echoed the promises made after the American civil conflict concluded on May 26, 1865. Promises of restoration, recognition, and the safe reclamation of community and assembly. These were more than words on a page. They became a call to action that Jim heard and he answered. Jim's desire as an advocate for peace did not end with those promises. It began there. From there, the Peacekeeping Task Force emerged, devoted to offering safe passage and real recognition to all seeking a return to lawful self-governance. This opportunity was not reserved for those within the states of America alone, but it extends to all assemblies and peoples across the earth, anywhere land and soil jurisdictions are honored. Today, the Peacekeeping Task Force stands steadfast, emboldened by Jim's memory and bound to his mission of securing safe passage and real recognition to all nations of the world. Let us continue with renewed resolve to offer what is owed to the people, not only as a tribute to Jim, but as an affirmation of the undying spirit he shared with all of us. Because America was literally staged as the storefront of our rogue government services providers' operations, meaning the Brits and the Holy Roman Empire, we accept the responsibility to lead the way, to be a model for the world's nations, to demonstrate how the living people restore their land and soil jurisdictions of sovereign governance in order to end the illegal mercenary and military occupation of our land and yours around the world. It requires us to provide a competent civilian alternative. Our role as the Peacekeeping Task Force is to facilitate this transition to our own national civilian government occupation. We want to emphasize the real issue of the matter at hand here, the real conversation that the American people and the peoples of the world need to be having right now. We are not talking about reforming commercial government services corporations' infrastructure. So what DOGE is doing is well and good, but that's not the real issue here. We are talking about reestablishing your sovereignty on your own soil as a country and nations of people. Presidents and corporations are red herrings. Our sovereignty as living people is at the heart of the matter. What we don't want is another Juneteenth situation, in the sense that 2.5 years go by before the last slaves were found and freed. They didn't even know that there was an Emancipation Proclamation. Our Federation of States and the Lakota Sioux Nation have issued a joint proclamation of restoration to officially initiate America's transition of government. We implore you to distribute it throughout all your communities. We wish for a peaceful and open transition to put an end to the fraud, the criminal misrepresentation, the lawfare, manipulation, impersonation, and pillaging that our country and our people have suffered. Join us in carrying on Jim's legacy and transitioning our current government framework back into an actual government for, of, and by the people, as it should have been for these past 160 years, but wasn't. We need for you all to distribute far and wide this international public notice so that all can know and begin to mobilize their communities to start reconstructing the actual Republican government bodies that we are owed and restore freedom and self-governance in every town in America. Hear our international public notice to the world. This international public notice is to inform you that the foreign federal subcontractors, the United States Government Services Corporations, have unlawfully and criminally converted your political status from that of an American to that of a foreign citizen. They have substituted their corporations for your lawful American government for 160 years. In so doing, they stole your identity, your credit, your gold, and your land assets. We, the Federation of States, DBA, the United States of America unincorporated, your lawful American government, established in 1776 and restored in 1998, have sued them for breach of trust, breach of contract, and fraud to recover these assets on behalf of the American people. We won. To claim the birthright and financial assets you are owed, contact your local American State Assembly to correct your political status. In this episode, I know I have upended some storylines that we thought was history, but turns out it's not. It's more miseducation. I wanted to bring into America's awareness the untold heritage that we have as a country, in hopes that we can start cutting the puppet master strings that's making us do dishonorable things to each other based on propaganda, not truth at all, as the video on Miracle Vespucci admits. The Peacekeeping Task Force is in full throttle, aiming to accomplish our government's transition as quickly as possible. And we have some positions open if you're interested in joining our staff. Visit the link below and contact us. Now go ahead and please leave me your questions and comments in the description below. Are you beginning to wonder what more your history teacher taught you that just was not true? Comb through my research notes and uncover more of the details to this untold story. Then meet me back here for the next episode of the Resurgence Pulse Report.